Hello and welcome to Planet Outlook. This week, my guest is Chandra Bhushan. He is the President and CEO of iFOREST, which expands to the International Forum for Environment, Sustainability and Technology. It's an independent non-profit looking at environmental research and innovation. Thank you, Chandra Bhushan, for joining us.
Thank you, Ananda. Thank you very much for having me.
So, Chandra Bhushan, you have been in the forefront for public policy for over 2 decades. Now, you have followed climate change and also global politics on climate change. So, if I can begin by asking, what are your reactions on the new IPCC, the 6th assessment report?
Well, the only difference between 6th assessment report and the 5th assessment report and the 4th and the 3rd assessment report is that scientists have become very confident now regarding what they're saying. So the 6th assessment report comes with immense confidence and certainty. And therefore, they are the people who have put together the Working Group 1 report of IPCC 6th assessment report. They are very confident now that we are heading towards a very difficult time as far as climatic impacts are concerned. They believe that we will hit 1.5 either in this decade or early in next decade. And the other thing they are finding is that the number of extreme weather events that we see, whether it is wildfire or heat wave or flood or drought, wouldn't have been possible without human interference. So this report comes with immense confidence and certainty. It also comes with a very clear warning that we are heading for 1.5. The kind of impact we have seen at 1.1 itself is devastating. 1.5 is going to be very difficult. And therefore, we must start preparing for 1.5 impact, but also make sure that we do not increase temperature beyond 1.5. So a very important report, and something that we all should take it very seriously.
And talking about seriously, I just want to kind of say that this report also comes on the backdrop of the massive wildfires, the floods, and the heat dome across the northern latitudes. Since the inception of IPCC, there have been several warnings from the same scientist group, but none of the warnings were taken seriously. So are you confident that something will change this time?
See, there are things which are changing. It is not that things have not changed. The only problem is that the scale of change and the speed of change is not commensurate with the challenges that we are facing right now. So, for example, this week we came to know that India has hit 100 gigawatt of renewable energy, which is an achievement to celebrate. Simply because, think about it, in 2001, just 20 years back, our entire electricity capacity was 100 gigawatt. Today, 20 years down the line, our renewable energy capacity, excluding hydropower, is 100 gigawatt. It means that there are changes in technology that is happening. I would have liked that 100 gigawatt to be maybe 200 gigawatt or 300 gigawatt. That is the scale of change we require. But at least we have reached 100 gigawatt. So there are things that is changing. My only hope is that with IPCC 6 report, the scale of change and the speed of change will increase. And I think the world is moving towards that direction. For example, about 70% of global emission countries who emit 70% of global emission have pledged net zero emission by 2050. But we have to make sure that it doesn't remain a long-term pledge.
I'll come. Sorry to interrupt. I'll come with that net zero thing a little later.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say that, is this why our government, the environment minister, put out that message that we welcome this IPCC report and that India has taken several steps towards combating climate change? So if this is one example that you have cited, that we have kind of done really well on the energy front. Any other examples from our country's point of view?
Well, I think we have done very well on energy front itself, and not so much on forestry, for example. If you look at our NDC, nationally determined contribution, our big NDC is with respect to renewable energy and forestry. And with forestry, we will struggle. We have to see how we will meet our NDC on forestry sector. But on energy, we will meet our requirement, the pledge that we have made. In fact, we will overreach it. But here I want to make sure, I want to make this point, Ananda, that actually India has the opportunity to increase its ambition. What we have pledged as NDC under Paris Agreement, there's huge scope to enhance it. Every country's NDCs should be enhanced because there is a huge scope to enhance it. And India, therefore, should take leadership, go to Glasgow and say we are willing to do more than what we have pledged. So that is what my hope also is from India. And therefore, I see the statement of Environment Minister from that perspective.
But last year, the UN said that none of the countries are meeting any of the environment targets as promised in Aichi. None of them were being met. So is there a gap somewhere?
Of course, there is a gap. Of course, there is a gap between pledge and the achievement. For example, US went out of the Paris Agreement for 4 years under Donald Trump's administration, and it has lagged behind. Canada is lagging behind. Australia is lagging behind. So is many, many more countries, those who have given the absolute emission reduction target. And China and India will possibly meet their target because we do not have absolute emission reduction target. R is efficiency target or expansion in green area, the forestry target. But there is always this gap, and we have to make sure that we bridge this gap because developed countries have also not met many of their past pledges. So it is time for them to show that they can meet what they have pledged, they can deliver on their pledges, both in terms of emission reduction, finance, and support, so that there is a confidence that is built from COP26 onwards in this climate negotiation.
Yeah. So what are you expecting in COP26? I mean, you've seen all the COPs,
Okay.
literally. Yeah. So what do you expect now in COP26?
I think COP26 is a COP to build momentum. I'm not expecting a lot of pledges and announcements at COP26. There will be, of course, net zero pledges and announcements that will be made. But I see COP26 as a stepping stone to build confidence post-Trump's presidency. Okay. The COP during Trump's presidency was a flop because at the end of the day, US was not there, leadership was not there. This is the first COP where US will participate fully. America is confident that it will meet net zero. It is going to announce and meet its net zero target. So we will see a lot of momentum towards future, but I'm not expecting a lot of announcements and pledges during this COP.
This has been the story for last 25 also COPs which has happened.
It is the story. See, that is what, the tragedy of climate negotiations have been that it is full of distrust and disagreements, and that distrust and disagreement continues. And my hope is that this entire, unless and until we get rid of this distrust and disagreement, where everyone has to take the lead. Okay, I always say that climate change is about pehle aap. The developing country says that developed countries should move first, and developed countries says no, developing countries should also do, because at the end of the day, it is a global climate that we are dealing with. Now, this pehle aap was fine 30 years back when there was a lot of carbon space and developing country had that space to grow and emit, but that is not possible now. The IPCC report makes it very clear that if we do not start reducing emission from now onwards, we will hit 1.5, we will hit 2. And then impacts are going to be devastating. So it is in interest of everyone to forget that pehle aap, and start working in terms of who all can do what best can I do. Now that's, unless and until we build that kind of trust and confidence in each other, climate negotiation will remain as it was 25 years back.
But do you think all these extreme weather events which has been happening for the last couple of years and which has hit the developed nations much harder than the global south, this will change the narrative?
I think it is already changing the narrative in Europe and in Canada and other places, because they now understand that even rich can't be saved. some of the richest homes in California burnt this season because of wildfire, or people have died in Canada when the temperature was over 40, 45, 50 degrees. So I think the rich world is recognizing that climate change is not the problem of developing world. It is their problem as well. And they will also suffer. So I think this message has hit them hard. And therefore, all this momentum towards net zero pledges that America and European countries are doing. Now, my hope is that this momentum should also mean that they should now come with much more ambition than what they had done in the past. If their seriousness will be judged, if they are more ambitious, their seriousness will not be judged if they only want action from developing countries. Okay. So while I think the message has gone to them, I am not sure that how seriously they will look at it in terms of enhancing their own ambition.
So you talked about net zero a couple of times. So net zero is the new buzzword in the climate change sector. How practical is net zero kind of thing? Can it be done? Because we know that this excess carbon is the problem, but we also need carbon to survive. So why this net zero, too much talk on this net zero thing?
Well, net zero is a scientific concept. Okay. First of all, it is scientific concept. There is no jargon in this. The concept is very simple, that the amount of carbon dioxide that you emit from fossil fuels and other processes should be sequestered by either forest or land or some other carbon sequestration technology. Okay. So that we are not emitting extra carbon into atmosphere. So it is a balance sheet. So it's a very scientific concept. If we want to solve climate change, the fact is that we will have to get rid of fossil fuel. The end of fossil fuel is an inevitability, at least for combustion processes. We can't burn fossil fuel, okay, because climate change is because of that. So I think net zero is a scientific concept. We have to take it as a scientific concept and develop countries' program and plans around it. Now, is it easy? The answer is no. But is it doable? The answer is yes. It is difficult yet doable. I believe that net zero is going to be net positive for India. Okay. Net zero means that Indian forests will flourish. Net zero means that we will be able to invest in land degradation. Our soil carbon is one of the least in the world. I think people do not understand the status of the land in this country. Our soil carbon is low. Net zero means that we will revive our soil. We will revive our forest. Net zero also means that we will reduce fossil fuel and move to alternate renewable technology. We will move to new green industry, which is good for India. So I believe that net zero in the end is net positive. If we plan, it is not going to be easy, but if we plan well, we will be able to achieve.
Are you surprised that the word fossil fuel was not in the summary, in the IPCC summary report for policymakers? It comes in the much later in the report, but there was no mention in the 42 pages of the summary that there was the word fossil fuel.
Frankly, Anandu, I have not noted that, but thank you for telling me that. Yeah. If it was not there, I am not sure why not. Okay, because I think if scientists are so confident, and I believe they were, the report is very hard hitting. It comes with a lot of certainty. I do not see why they cannot say that we need to end fossil fuels. Okay, this is the basis of climate changes, that we have to stop using fossil fuel in next 2 to 3 decades. If we want to keep temperature below 1.5 C. I'm not sure why they have not, but I'll have a look at it.
Yeah, because most the policymakers read the summaries and they don't read the report.
Yes. So, but this is intriguing. I'll have a look at it.
Yeah. And now coming to one of your latest opinion pieces, where you in detail basically laid out the challenges, India's challenges on the energy transmission of the poor states and the rich states. For our viewers, if you can just elaborate a little bit on.
So essentially, what I'm talking about energy transition in this country, and that transition must happen. But we must understand there is a huge divergence in energy resources in India. Whereas coal, which is the foundation of India's energy system, is largely in central and eastern India. Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh. These are the places where you have most of your coal resources. Whereas your renewable resources are largely in southern and western India, Gujarat and Maharashtra and Telangana and Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Now, it also so happens that eastern and central India are economically backward compared to western and southern India. Now, in this energy transition, we are going to ask eastern and central India to close coal mines, whereas western and southern India will have more and more renewable that will come. So the energy industry will shift from central to eastern India, from central and eastern India to western and southern India. Now, this has huge implication on our federalism, because central and eastern India can very well argue that why should I stop coal to enrich southern and western India? Okay, so these are very important questions. What will happen to cities like Korba or Bardhaman or Angul and other places where everything depends on coal? Okay, what will happen to millions of people who depend on coal mining and thermal power plant? Now, these are very, very important questions to answer. Now, the only way central and eastern India will agree to close coal mine if you do 5 things, and that's what my opinion piece was on. And I have called it as 5 R's of just transition. So we need to have energy transition, but that transition must be fair and just for everyone, especially where we are asking coal mines to be closed. And those 5 R's are, Ananda. First, we will have to restructure their economy. If we want their coal mines to be closed, we will have to give them something else. Okay. Otherwise, why should they close their coal mines? So first, we will have to restructure their economy and industry. The first R. Second, we will have to repurpose existing infrastructure. Coal mines and thermal power plants have 3 lakh hectares of land. Now, those land, something else will have to come. So repurposing of land and infrastructure will become important. The third is we will have to reskill and skill people of those areas so that they can have gainful employment in other sector. Okay. The fourth point, the fourth R is their government depends on coal revenue. So Jharkhand, Orissa, and Chhattisgarh, their revenue comes from coal in terms of taxes and other things. Those taxes will have to be substituted. So revenue substitution is the 4R. And the 5th R is in this transition, we will have to do it with social responsibility and environmental responsibility. We cannot do the way we did coal mining by acquiring land and displacing tribals or destroying forest. That we can't do in this energy transition. So the 5th R is the responsible environmental and social practices. If we can assure these 5 R's, then we can very well demand Eastern and Central India to phase out coal. Otherwise, we have no right to ask them to close, because otherwise we will make them even poorer than what they already are. So just transition is going to be very important over the next 20, 30 years if we want to phase out fossil fuels.
But this is contrary to India's position, global position, where last year we have seen the government opening up coal and saying that we need to be Atmanirbhar on energy.
Yes,
it
is. But you already see opposition coming from states. You already see Jharkhand saying that I do not want new coal mines. Or if I want coal mines, it will be my say. Jharkhand is essentially saying, we can auction coal mine, but it will be dependent on us whether we want that coal mine or not. Similar noises you hear from Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh has said that they do not want to set up new coal-fired power plant. Okay. So has Maharashtra has announced, Gujarat has said that they don't want. So we are hearing, opposite view on this. But my whole analysis is that I think by investing more and more in coal, we will end up where China is today. There's a large amount of stranded asset in China. So it is an economically poor decision. Leave environment, leave climate change. Today, these will become a stranded asset because renewable energy is becoming cheaper than coal. Okay, so I think these are economically not a very wise decision. China is today suffering with large scale stranded asset in coal and thermal and other sector. My hope is that we will not end up doing the same thing. But
this is also exactly what got played out when your opinion piece reminds of the Green Deal of the European Union, where Poland refused to sign because Poland depends on coal for its economy.
But I think India needs a new Green Deal. We need a new social and environmental contract. Frankly speaking, we have to have our own version of new Green Deal. Which is happening in bits and parts. I was quite encouraged with Prime Minister's statement on 15th August, where he talked about climate change and hydrogen mission and energy transition. He did mention those things, which are important for a Prime Minister to speak about these things from the rampart of Red Fort on such an important day. Is an important message that goes out. So we are doing in bits and pieces, but we need to have a big picture. Where is India going in the next 20 to 30 years? That big picture, that new Green Deal for India is something that we must devise over the next few years.
But the transition, one is the transition of the green energy, but there is also a concern. You mentioned forestry, you're lagging behind forestry. So there's one concern from a section of ecologists that we are gobbling up the grasslands, which is one of the poorly neglected ecosystems for this green energy kind of thing, where a lot of species, we have a lot of iconic species like the wolf, the great Indian bustard in these grasslands. And that is where all this new energy is focused on. So that
I think there is a poor understanding about carbon sequestration in policy making circles. That is why, because grasslands themselves are very rich sequester of carbon. Okay, the only thing, it is not tree, it is grass, and it is the top soil in grassland which will sequester carbon. Okay, there is carbon sequestration potential in grassland. There is carbon sequestration potential in water bodies. Wetlands are very good carbon sequester. So I think there is this problem of understanding on what carbon sequestration means. Okay, carbon sequestration doesn't mean only tree. Carbon sequestration can happen on farmland. In fact, one of the biggest potential in India to sequester carbon is in farmland, and therefore it's an understanding problem, and we will have to dispel that, and we will have to protect grasslands. They are highly biodiverse, highly productive ecosystem. Water bodies and grassland, hilltops, these are extremely productive ecosystems, and we will have to make sure that they do not become tree land. Okay, in the quest to sequester more carbon. That's not what is required.
But that's what the policy is driving. Like, there is this narrative that you have to plant trees to combat climate change.
That is fine. I mean to say, you can plant tree on farmland. Who is stopping you? In fact, it is very good to have agroforestry. Okay, it is also good for the farmer. At the end of the day, it is almost like a cash deposit for farmer if they're growing tree. Growing tree in cities is good. I mean to say, one of the way we are going to reduce the heat island effect in our cities is to have more green spaces. Okay, so there are areas to grow tree, and we should grow tree there. 50% of India's land is agricultural land. Think about it. Okay, forest land is only about 18-20% in real forest term. Okay, 20%, maybe a little more. But 50% of our land is agricultural land. Those land there can be a lot of trees that can be grown along with agricultural produce, along with farming. So yes, we should grow tree, but we should know where to grow tree. I would not recommend growing tree on grassland. That's not what is required.
To end this, Chandra Bhushan, I would also come back to iFOREST. Now, this is your new venture. It's been just a couple of years you've launched it. So just tell us about a bit of the iFOREST.
Oh, very happy with, very excited about the new venture, Ananda. We are focusing a lot on bottom-up action. So we are working a lot at the state and district level, and less at the central government level. We are doing a lot of primary research. We are working in districts like Korba and Ramgarh and Angul, where coal mines are happening. We are working with cities on green cooling. How do we, get more energy efficient cooling technologies? So very excited with the range of work we are doing and the kind of, and the people that we are engaging with. For the first time in my career, I'm engaging majorly with grassroots people who are at the district level, which is giving a very different sense of the kind of work we need to do. Also, the work that iFOREST is doing is about making sure that things happen on the ground. It doesn't remain policy. For 30 years, you just can see how many policies we have got, but the implementation remains very poor. So on that, we are working, as you rightly said, we are doing a lot of innovative work. We are working on sensor-based monitoring technologies, use of ICT technology for information dissemination and information collection. So a lot of innovative work on technology also that iFOREST is doing.
Amazing, Chandra Bhushan. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on this show, and good luck with iFOREST.
Thank you very much.